a PhD scholar at Trinity College Dublin, and a clinical nurse manager with over 11 years of experience in nursing education, community health, and clinical practice. Having worked in a nursing home care of older persons, emergency department, and currently undergoing her PhD in Trinity College Dublin, where she is developing a nurse-led co-design care transmission tool to improve discharge communications and care transition of older patients. Over to you, Olayinka.
Thank you so much. Just 1 second, please. I welcome everybody again, and thank you so much for inviting me. That's a very good introduction. I don't think I have to do anything again. You can just call me Ola. That's what I'm called popularly. I have a short video before I start. We're just working on that. Today I'm talking about equality, diversity, and inclusion in practicality. And in this case, using cultural integration as the driving tool. But before then, I have a short video. Okay, I'm standing here representing all African nurses. Sorry, now this one. We're coming there.
What is the language of my painful attempt to communicate with a girl in English class?
So this is the first video I'd like us to watch. Like I said, I'm standing here representing African nurses as well as international nurses. I'm originally from Nigeria. And so this video is going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. So thank you.
The girl in English class, what is funny? What is hilarious about my painful attempt to communicate in a language that is not even my own? So this accent tells a story of survival. Tells how my mother tongue endured to this day, so I expect you treat my tongue with some respect. Every word, every syllable I utter comes from a riot within. My mouth is a battle between subconscious tongue, teeth, and vocal cord. So excuse you if my speech does not suit you. So this speech comes from this slaughterhouse I call a mouth. See, my mouth is a battlefield, a clash of unyielding cultures, warring for dominance. See, my tongue is a traumatized survivor, lost in this alien fluency. See, this accent is how I find my way home. How I say EDP without biting my tongue. So my tongue is forever at war with itself, forever fighting to decolonize itself, fighting to lose and regain itself all at the same time. So cut me some slack. I will not be ashamed nor refrain from saying my name, and no, I will not apologize for my mother's legacy. For there is no dignity in denying my identity. So to the girl in English class, it's about time you learn my own language too.
Thank you. And then, thank you so much for listening. So, equality, diversity, and inclusion in practicality, using cultural integration of international educated nurses as the driving tool. So that's the I and the. This is to all nurses, nurse leaders, nurse managers. We talk so much about why EDI. Thank you so much, Edward. I think he's gone. Thank you for the last speakers about the, equality commissions, rights, and all that. So I'm not going to go into all that. I've been introduced, but again, I just tell you a little bit about myself, my origin. Again, I said I'm standing representing African nurses. So if I'm using I'm representing African nurses. I moved into Ireland about 6 years ago, having worked as a nurse tutor for 4 years. So like I had about 8 years experience before coming in. Even though I was not a novice nurse, but I was the new nurse. And I think this represents so many international nurses that when they move to Ireland, they are the new nurse. And we know what the new nurse is, that feeling. So I felt that way, and I'm sure a lot of international nurses felt the same way. So we were the newbies, and that comes with a lot of challenges. So dear international educated nurse, you may be the new, but you are not a novice nurse. Just know that. So talking about equality, diversity, and inclusion, I think I forgot that I had to use this. As this is the outline I'm going to be talking about, but we have a lot of topics, presentations, seminars about EDI already. It's it's becoming more like a marketing strategist for most organizations. We have blueprint policies written everywhere for equality, and organizations trying to expand their market by recruiting diverse groups. However, the point for sales stops once recruitment is complete. We do not understand the culture of the people we recruit, just as they do not understand us. So easier said than done. How do we put our paperwork, the policies on inclusion, equality, diversity into practice? So I believe, and I'll be talking more about how we can use cultural integration as a driving tool to understand the workforce, the international educated nurses, and to ensure that they are well integrated into the system. So by way of describing who international educated nurses are, they are individuals who are practicing nursing in a country other than their own. And I know from research that in every 8 nurse, one in every 8 nurses practice in a country other than the one where they were born or trained. And that's from ICN. I found this report last year by ICN, Sustain and Retain reports, and this actually, really helped me to understand the experiences of international nurses. The Sustain and Retain report highlighted the pre-existing nurse understaffing. I don't know if anybody has seen this by the ICN. They stated that there were reduced nurse retention, especially during COVID and so on. Employers and organizations are now shifting so much focus, taking responsibility to provide supportive education. Well, it is important for us to know that without sufficient, well-motivated professionals, and thankfully, Edward mentioned that we are a very larger part of the Irish nursing workforce in Ireland. Without well-motivated and supportive international educated nurses, let me put it that way now, the global health system, Irish health system cannot function. So one way to support international educated nurses is by understanding how we can support them through the period of culture shock. So I'm not going to go into this because Edward actually gave us a very good background about the NMBI, the status, and so on. But I found 3 key, interesting areas where the NMBI is focusing to retain nurses and midwives, to attract new nurse and midwifery talents from overseas, and ensuring greater diversity in the workplace. And we already know about this percentage. Now, what is EDI? I used to listen to this song, in the Spirit FM when I'm going in the car every day. Everybody's different, but we are all the same. Everybody's different, but we are all the same. And that speaks volume when it comes to equality, diversity, and inclusion. What brings us together, I believe, is more than what separates us. Diversity, they are all topics in the healthcare world anyways. The policy is a valuable tool. But before we can have a meaningful conversation about equality, diversity, and inclusion that might lead to significant change, we need to understand the meaning of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Diversity means everyone is different, everyone is individual. But equality means equal access to opportunities, and thank you for explaining, showing us that. And inclusion is a sense of belonging, feeling and being respected and valued. I belong to a lot of, committees. At the moment, I'm a postgraduate representative in the EDI committee, in Trinity. But sometimes I feel like I'm just a number. Sometimes we are just in that group, in that committee, just because they just want representation, but not necessarily inclusion. How do we ensure inclusion in the representativeness? It's very important that we need to, ask ourselves these questions. So this was me and any other internationally educated nurse. Thank you, my friend Rachel Archer from the US. We belong to an innovative, let me call it a workshop, and she helped me to design. I just told her this was what was in my head, culture shock. I want us to just reflect and think, what could be going on in the head of that international educated nurse? That's all. That could be you, maybe that was you, that could be anyone coming tomorrow into Ireland, coming from a different culture. Just think, what is all those things going on in their head? For me, it was a lot. It was because I left my 2-year-old son that had not even called mommy. I left my girl that's, barely just getting to know me, and my mom, my siblings. I left my home, and I was in another culture. I had a lot of culture shock. I'll tell you a little bit of it. The weather, very unpredicted, and I came in with my friend, and when we got into the nursing home, they offered us meal. They were like, oh, we're preparing meal for you. What would you like to have? And they gave us a list of menu. And out of about 8 things that were mentioned, I could only pick pie. I felt like, well, that's familiar. Pie. We have pie in Nigeria. So we were waiting for the meal. I think after 30 minutes, and here comes the pie. It was different. It was something else. And I looked at my friend, is this the pie? So we just let them leave, and then we just trashed it and took bread and butter. We were so hungry after 13 hours flat. That was a culture shock for me. Porridge, we call it yam porridge, but here is the oats. It was a culture shock. And calling people by their first name in an official setting was also strange, because we rather say Dr. Aremu rather than Ola. Minding your business was not funny for me, because I don't mind my business. But people just go on their own, like you just say hello. And the other thing is, like, people just say hi without even expecting the feedback. I will stand and gist for hours. So it was culture shock for me. Less familiarity. We'll have matrons, we carry their bags, but just mind your business. It was really hard. So generally, the expectations migrant nurses had prior to migration may not be met, and that in turn could have a negative impact on their integration process. So I'm going to skip a lot of this because we've talked about it. So culture shock is that emotional and psychological factor that leads to confusion, uncertainty, clashes, and certain unidentified reaction that affect person's observation and their interactive skill in a completely different culture. So just a 30-second reflection there. Have you experienced culture shock before? What were the signs and symptoms? Just think about it. But from my experience and sharing with my colleagues, we have feeling excessive, homesick, tired, resentfulness, being isolated, feeling anxious, sleeping a lot. Some cry, and some are reluctant to speak English because they feel they're going to be condemned or judged. Writing or calling home frequently, crying a lot were some common experiences. So I got this from a research that although our nurses have passed the English language test to a very high standard, I had 8.5 in IELTS, our first sitting. Strong local accents, colloquialism, and some Irish phrases are just some common struggles for new nurses. And some will experience professional development and devaluing. Thankfully to Aremu, I really appreciate that the entry point has been resolved. Like, you can come with your experience, and you will be, placed properly. That's very encouraging. Thank you. Personal and professional differences as well. So many. I've mentioned some, and people go through different stages. I'm running through of culture shock. I don't know what stage you are now. You start with the honeymoon phase, and you go to the uncertainty phase, and thereabout, adaptation and acceptance. I think I'm at the acceptance phase myself, but just so this message is for all international educated nurses, migrant nurses, so to say, that it's just a stage. It's a phase that we all pass through. I believe we have communities like this that will support us through the process. So culture shock, just so we know, is not always a bad thing. And in some ways, it can enhance our individual learning experiences and self-efficacy. I did this presentation, I did a similar presentation in Manchester last year. It was during the Black History Month. And to my surprise, somebody said, I experienced culture shock, but it was a positive way. She was expecting that she will not be accepted. She was expecting that people will not respect her, but it was the other way around for her. And it was a culture shock for her. So it's not always a bad thing. Just to mention, still talking about how to support internationally educated nurses, there are several factors. Remember the last image? It's going on in the head of an international educated nurse, of a migrant nurse, there are family issues. And this brings me to talk about the issue of family reunification for, international nurses, African nurses, especially Nigerian and Ghanaian nurses. I'm sure Aremu is aware of this. They are working tremendously, about this. Our members are crying every day. People have to go back home to see their family after waiting for a year. So there's a lot going on there. I waited 1.5 years before I could see my son, and he could not recognize me. It's a lot going. Professional issues, social issues. This brings me to accommodation. We know there's a general, crisis about accommodation, but then it's very hard for a migrant coming in and no place to live. I don't know how we can function well, how we can give the best care to our patient if we are not careful. It's very important. So these are some of the reasons that for culture shock among migrant nurses. Communication issues we have talked about, and lack of training. It's very important. Most of the time we see recruiters or recruitment agencies marketing, we will do this, we will do that. But then you're just thrown into the mist and you just have to figure things out yourself. There's a lot going on there. So how do we cope with culture shock? This was from my experience and also from research. Just to keep an open mind, try to make friends. I need Irish friends. Who will be my friend? Try new things. Now I'm trying the Irish soup, and it's really like, I love it. I had it 2 nights ago. It's a two-way. You also appreciate other culture. You also have to learn the new culture to be integrated. So staying positive, with time things will be easier with time and practice. And very important, take care of your health. Music, I love music, I dance a lot. Maybe you know that already. And any other thing, talk to somebody, talk to someone. You have a community. I'm sure ANNI has the mental health workshop and so on. So talk to someone. The worst mistake anyone can make is to keep silent. So if you're in that culture shock, please talk to someone. And I've gone through this. Now, this is the other image when we have gone through that stage and we are culturally integrated. You see what happened? That's me in the middle. With the support of everyone, of my nurse managers, of my colleagues, of the host Irish nurses, because that's also very important, that we know that people are coming from a different, we need to accept them. We do not judge them, we support them all through. So with a well-supported system, I'm happy, I'm free. My voice can be heard, I can raise my hand up, I can, share my feeling without any, limitation. So that's what cultural integration does. And if you have somebody like that, if you have a network of international nurses that felt supported, then they can function at their best, giving their best care to the patient, and we know there will be improved healthcare outcome. That is based on research. Okay, I'm running through this. So to nurse managers and leaders, it's been known that we focus more on transition rather than integration. Just get them in, fill in the gap, fill in the space. We need 10 nurses, but we need to start focusing more on supporting integration rather than just transitioning, just coming in. Oh, we have induction. Induction is not integration. There's more to integration. It's having that understanding that these people might be going through so many other, multifactorial issues other than just working. I received a rude shock last night, not yes, in the morning, the other day. I'm not supposed to be here. My brother is in ICU at the moment. He's on life support. And I rang in to tell my manager I won't be in. I have to support my family. I'm the only medical-oriented person. They depend on me. And the other thing I could hear is, could you come in for a few hours? That is not good. So it's not just about filling the gap. It's about helping that nurse in their own states. Because if we are not mentally stable, we cannot provide utmost care. So integration, like I said, it's two ways. It's not just from one side. And it involves three processes, respecting diversity and difference. My food smells because it tastes great. Because there are so many ingredients. So don't tell me to take my food out of the break room. It has curry, it has crayfish, it has locust bean. Those things make them taste great. But opening the window because I'm eating is discrimination. Or asking me, does that taste good? We need to adopt inclusive practices, striving to achieve equity. I'm sure we know all about this. Respecting diversity involves, our understanding how diverse backgrounds or migrant nurses help address patient diversity. I work as a discharge coordinator of patient flow, and we have a lot of patients from different backgrounds. And I've been opportune, to talk to a Nigerian patient that does not understand English to help them through their care transition. Because somebody said she's proving difficult. But just because she had something she could not express to you. And just talking to that patient made a lot of difference. So we have different patients from different backgrounds. So if we have diverse background of migrant nurses or nurses, it helps to address patient diversity. I think we need to start looking at the bigger picture. It includes acknowledging that international educated nurses might experience various challenges in their transition, recognizing and accepting the responsibility from both parts as well. And that this is to the international educated nurses, you must invest time and resources to learn about nursing in your new country, in the host country. We have so many that we just want to keep to our culture. It's involved. Cultural integration is about learning, unlearning, and relearning the new culture. In a very recent research, this is a discussion between an international educated nurse, and the manager. She said, when I was new, they said I don't speak English well. They questioned my skills, as if they don't trust me. I know this sometimes it's very true because you can't understand what the person is saying. We kind of judge them that probably they are not competent, but it's not about that. But this is the response from the manager. It is one thing to be able to speak English, but it's another thing to get your point across in a way that's clear and that doesn't, perpetuate stereotypes of an international educated nurse being not so educated. So it's understanding both sides. Now, for international educated nurses, you speak English quite all right, but we need it to be clear and concise. But that could take some time. So nurse managers, please give us some time. The other lady in the video said, cut me some slack. That means give me some time. Adopting inclusive practices is another approach to cultural integration, and it involves leaders should understand that one size does not fit all. We don't use that approach when it comes to workplace integration. Creating and sustaining an inclusive organization that is not just written on the mission, statement, or policy. There has to be focused plan. And exposures of co-workers and even patients to diverse background, very important. Striving to achieve equity is very important as well. It requires genuine openness and willingness to accept internationally educated nurses as valuable contributors of knowledge and expertise. We are resourceful, we are experienced, and we need to be accepted. We need to develop creative and responsive approaches, so that international educated nurses may achieve equitable outcomes in their professional growth. There needs to be a shift of focus from how internationally educated nurses can adapt or fit in to what we can bring in. Let there be shift from how they can fit in, just transition and get in there. You need to work yourself up. But what about what we can bring in? Well, cultural tolerance is for both sides. I've talked about this. Workplace culture and communication challenges reminds national educated nurses of their foreignness every time. Lack of belonging, which often increases their sense of vulnerability. Several times we have, migrant nurses going to the bathroom to cry. Let's think about that. So there are tools for success, thank God. Cultural competence, and that involves focusing on developing the non-technical skills of health professionals through empathy, openness, and kindness. Being open, being flexible, humility, being sensitive to others, showing the spirit of adventure, use this little sense of humor, and practice positive change. I'll jump that. So this was me, October last year, the first cultural diversity celebration in Connolly. Was my initiative, and I'm very happy that the management embraced it. I have one of my CNN here. It was the first of its kind, and the director of nursing received, I just sent an email, I have an idea, and it was embraced, and everybody took it and ran with it, and I was just watching. It involves you just coming out. You can't be heard if you are at the back. You need to show up so that they can know you. And when they know you, they respect you. So the international educated nurses who is integrated in the workplace is the one who is committed to lifelong learning. This is another very, very important message. Because you have a master's, that is not the end. Go a little bit further. Aremu has a lot of professional development courses. Take a leap. There's the importance of self-advocacy. We have solicitors, thankfully, but then you can also advocate for yourself. You can also speak out. So to take part, you need to walk the path. I want to encourage all African nurses using this opportunity to work with migrant nurses. And thank you, Vagesh. Thank you. Because we want a uniform voice. We are one. What brings us together, it's more than what separates us. In conclusion, given the various challenges at the individual, international educated nurses and organizational level, diversity alone does not bring about inclusive culture. The benefit of a two-way integration are beyond just the international educated nurses. And with thoughtful and deliberate integration, international nurses may be able to reach their full career potential as professional nurses in their host country. And ultimately, cultural integration is a win-win for all. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ola, for that wonderful presentation on cultural integration. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence despite all the